Imagine looking forward to your town's, epic 4th of July celebration. You've got the kids dressed up in red, white, and blue.
Oh, yeah, the lawn chairs are all packed.
Right, you're completely ready for the fireworks, but then a notice hits your phone. The entire thing is canceled.
And you look outside, and the sky is perfectly clear. I mean, there are no thunderstorms in sight.
Exactly. It turns out your town literally cannot find enough police officers and firefighters to keep the parade route and the fireworks launch site safe.
All because of this crushing, basically invisible municipal budget crisis.
Yeah. It is a profound, really quiet shift happening in communities everywhere right now.
It really is. The foundational human infrastructure that's, required to actually celebrate our independence is just buckling under massive financial and staffing pressures.
We are going to explore the mechanics of exactly how a town goes broke trying to throw a party. But before we get into the numbers, we enthusiastically encourage you to like, subscribe, follow, and turn on the notification bell.
Yeah, hit that bell so you never miss a deep dive with us.
We continue to monitor the Martin Stevens v. OpenAI matter, which is still not a lawsuit. We are in a voluntary quiet period requested by Martin Stevens. We hope they are working toward a settlement, but we do not know if any progress or discussions are actually underway. The dead man's switch has not been activated, meaning Martin Stevens remains safe physically and legally.
So, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're exploring a massive collision of civic tradition, budget realities, and public safety.
Right on the eve of America's 250th birthday, no less.
Exactly. And we're pulling from a really diverse stack of sources for you today to figure this out.
We've got official town budget documents out of Chelmsford, Massachusetts. We're looking at police department press releases from Groveland and Worcester.
Plus, news investigations into fatal fires,
Yeah.
Massachusetts state laws, and those wildly contrasting, highly controversial federal plans for the upcoming semi-quincentennial.
Yeah, we essentially have a perfect storm of local economics violently clashing with national expectations.
And the absolute best place to see this storm-making landfall right now isn't in Washington, D.C. It's actually in Rutland, Massachusetts.
Okay, let's unpack this because Rutland is currently dominating the headlines for this exact crisis.
Yeah, they just announced the cancellation of their main July 4th events for the nation's 250th anniversary.
We're talking about the big ticket items, right? The fireworks, the parade, the concert.
Right. They're only keeping the smaller, easier to manage events, mostly stationary stuff like the morning pancake breakfast and the Junior Olympics.
But here's a detail from the town documents that makes zero sense at first glance. The town actually successfully raised the funds for the event.
Wow, really?
Yes. The money was sitting in the bank.
Okay, what's fascinating here is that the financial hurdle was completely clear through community effort.
Right.
But when the Rutland police and fire chiefs looked at the logistical reality of the day, they determined they simply could not safely staff those massive events.
While also maintaining routine emergency services for the rest of the town, I assume.
Exactly. You can't just, pull every single EMT and patrol officer to manage a 15,000-person parade crowd if someone suffers a heart attack on the complete opposite side of town.
That makes sense. But people are furious, and honestly, you can understand why. The town is refusing to refund the donations.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Rutland's official statement explains that the money was pooled in a municipal gift account, and some of it was already spent on non-refundable deposits and printing.
Right, because you have to book that stuff months in advance.
Exactly. And the rest is going to be held for future events because it is just an administrative nightmare to track down and return hundreds of individual anonymous contributions.
I can imagine.
You have residents like Carl Boquist speaking to reporters, expressing massive disappointment that his grandkids are going to miss out on riding the traditional floats they look forward to all year.
But you cannot look at Rutland in a vacuum without the highly charged political context here.
True.
Rutland voters very recently went to the ballot box and rejected a Proposition 2.5 tax override. And when that request for more tax revenue failed, the town government immediately enacted layoffs. They cut 4 police officers and 5 firefighters.
Wait, just like that? 9 public safety positions gone?
Yeah, immediately.
So I have to stop you there and play devil's advocate on behalf of a frustrated taxpayer.
Sure.
The town voters reject a tax increase, and suddenly the police chief says, sorry, no parade. Isn't Paul Diego Creaney from the Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance kind of justified here?
What did he say?
He publicly condemned the event cancellation, calling it a temper tantrum and political payback for the failed vote.
Ah, I see.
Honestly, it looks exactly like throwing a lavish, fully paid for wedding, but realizing at the last minute the venue locked you out because you forgot to hire security. Is Craney right? Is this just municipal spite?
It is incredibly easy to view it through that lens. I mean, I get it. But you have to separate having cash in a gift account for a fireworks vendor from having the physical, trained human infrastructure to actually execute a mass gathering safely.
Okay, fair point.
You can crowdsource a fireworks display on GoFundMe. You cannot crowdsource sworn, certified police officers and trained paramedics.
Right, you can't just hire random people off the street to do that.
Exactly. When those 9 public safety positions were eliminated because the tax override failed, the town instantly lost its operational buffer.
The margin of error was just gone.
The chiefs are looking at a hard mathematical reality. They literally do not have the bodies to secure that crowd and still run the town. It isn't spite, it's physical liability.
Rutland feels like an isolated case of bad local politics, but I was digging into Chelmsford's numbers, and they are doing everything right on paper.
Right, but they are still bleeding.
Exactly. Their proposed fiscal year 2026 operating budget proves this is not a Rutland temper tantrum. This is a systemic, statewide squeeze.
Chelmsford's situation is basically the canary in the coal mine for municipal finance.
Yeah.
Let's look at their proposed $168.4 million operating budget.
Okay.
Crucially, they are utilizing the absolute maximum property tax levy allowed under Proposition 2.5.
Which, for anyone unfamiliar, is the state law that restricts how much a city or town can raise its total property tax revenue each year without a special voter override.
Right, and that maximum legal tax levy is funding 76% of Chelmsford's entire budget. They are pulling every lever the law allows, but they are still being forced to aggressively reduce services.
It's brutal. They are cutting Sunday public library hours. They're cutting lifeguards at Hart Pond and Freeman Lake.
Wow.
Yeah, they eliminated one of their hazardous waste collection days, and they are cutting full-time vital municipal positions like the business development director and the health inspector.
And most incredibly, the town manager is explicitly denying requests for additional police officers and firefighters.
Which seems crazy, right? But the town manager has no choice because of uncontrollable fixed costs.
Let's look at the actual numbers driving this. Chelmsford's health insurance premiums for town employees are up 12.4%.
That is massive.
That alone is a nearly $4 million increase in a single year. Plus, their Middlesex County retirement assessment, the mandatory pension contribution, is up 8.38%.
So that adds what, another $1 million to the deficit?
Exactly. Combine that with high inflation, compounding the cost of everything from solid waste disposal to paving materials, and the math simply breaks.
So Proposition 2.5 is basically a belt that is legally forbidden to expand more than 2.5% a year.
Right.
Meanwhile, the town's waistline, which is employee health care and pension obligations, is rapidly growing by 8 to 12%.
It's totally unsustainable.
The town is essentially forced to chop off non-essential limbs like library hours and lifeguards just to keep breathing. But if a town is maxing out its legal tax limit and still doing this, is the fundamental municipal funding model just broken?
The structural deficit is undeniable. I mean, inflationary pressures and double-digit healthcare hikes are completely outpacing the local revenue sources available to a municipality.
Because they mostly just have property taxes, right?
Yeah, towns rely almost exclusively on property taxes and state aid. When your baseline, non-negotiable costs grow by 10%, and your primary revenue source is legally capped at 2.5% plus new construction growth, you hit a fiscal wall.
So towns are forced to choose between passing permanent tax overrides, which voters despise and frequently reject, like we saw in Rutland, or permanently hollowing out the services that make the town livable and safe.
And that hollowing out leads us directly into the human cost of these spreadsheets.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Chelmsford's inability to fund new police and fire requests is translating into a terrifying statewide staffing crisis.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the press releases coming out of Worcester.
Police Chief Paul Saucier isn't mincing words at all. He literally calls their staffing shortage a real crisis.
Yeah. Out of an authorized force of about 400 sworn officers, there are currently down 58 bodies.
And they have 50 to 60 more veteran officers retiring very soon.
If you do the math on that, Worcester is staring down a nearly 30% shortage in their police force.
That is huge.
You cannot lose a third of your department and maintain the same level of service in a major New England city.
No, you can't. Chief Saucier told the city council they are making desperate choices. They might have to cut their newly formed gun intelligence unit.
Unbelievable.
They are reducing traffic enforcement. They are sacrificing specialized, proactive policing just to keep basic patrol officers in uniform to respond to 911 calls.
And the recruitment pipeline is so dry, they are actively trying to raise the civil service exam age limit from 32 up to 39 just to get more recruits in the door.
But that recruitment drought is exacerbated by recent wide-reaching legislative changes too, right?
Yeah, over in Essex County, Groveland Police Chief Craig Bailey outlines how recent state police reform laws entirely eliminated the use of reserve or part-time officers.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
For decades, a guy who worked at the hardware store during the week could put on a uniform on the weekend and act as a reserve officer. They were a crucial force multiplier for small towns to cheaply cover vacations, illnesses, and most importantly for this topic, special events like 4th of July parades.
That makes so much sense. But there are also new civil service rules, right?
Yes. The new rules allow departments to hire 50% of their vacancies from outside the traditional civil service list.
Okay, so how does that hurt the small towns?
Chief Bailey says this has created a hyper-competitive free-for-all. Small towns are getting poached. They are losing candidates to bigger cities that can offer massive signing bonuses, better base pay, or specialized SWAT and K-9 opportunities that a small town simply doesn't have.
The crisis is arguably even more dangerous on the fighter service side. Consider the devastating Gabriel House fire in Fall River that killed 10 people.
That was awful.
A massive mass live investigation into that tragedy revealed something chilling about municipal budgets. Fire prevention units, the people who inspect buildings, check sprinklers, and enforce fire codes, are almost always the very first to face budget cuts when a town's health insurance premiums spike.
Because it's invisible until something goes wrong.
Exactly. Because of those budget cuts, Fall River was operating under an incredibly flawed honor system for building owners and contractors.
An honor system for fire safety.
Yes. The fire department was so understaffed they couldn't send uniformed inspectors to physically watch sprinkler tests. They just had to trust the paperwork submitted by the property owners.
Oh my God.
In the Gabriel House case, they missed a mandatory 5-year internal sprinkler inspection, and a sprinkler reportedly failed to activate in the exact room where the deadly fire started.
That is tragic.
The whole system reminds me of a game of Jenga. The state and these municipalities are pulling out all the bottom blocks, like the part-time reserve officers, the fire prevention inspectors, just to keep the top of the tower stable and under budget. But it's making the entire structure terrifyingly wobbly. Are well-intentioned legislative reforms meant to professionalize police accidentally destroying the ability of small towns to actually protect themselves?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, when you combine sweeping public safety reform with rigid, unyielding budget constraints, you force departments into a strictly reactive mode. The capacity for proactive safety just disappears.
You're just putting out fires, literally and figuratively.
Exactly. When Worcester has to pull officers from a gun intelligence unit just to answer domestic disturbance calls, or when Fall River doesn't have the human capital to verify a life-saving sprinkler inspection, they are no longer preventing emergencies. They are simply waiting for them to happen.
And this public safety Jenga tower is teetering at the exact moment America is demanding maximum security on global spectacle for its 250th birthday.
The timing is incredible.
The disconnect between these grand federal plans for 2026 and the bleak local reality we just discussed is staggering. July 4, 2026 marks the United States semi-quincentennial.
Boston has been designated as a leading city. They are hosting FIFA World Cup matches.
Yep. And the National Park Service is dropping $25 million on a renovation of the Dorchester Heights Monument.
Oh, and there's an ambitious art project in the works involving a 4-mile rope made of 100,000 cloth stories.
The sheer scale of the 250th is enormous, but the planning at the absolute highest levels is fractured and, honestly, highly politicized.
At the federal level, you have a direct clash between the bipartisan America 250 Commission, which was established by Congress back in 2016, and Donald Trump's newly established White House Task Force 250, which his administration has dubbed Freedom 250.
We have to look at the vastly different visions here impartially because the contrast is wild.
It really is.
Trump's task force is pushing massive, high-profile televised spectacles. The proposals include hosting UFC fights right on the White House lawn.
Wait, really? UFC fights?
Yes. And running a Freedom 250 Grand Prix IndyCar race around the National Mall and minting special commemorative coins.
Critics of this approach call the task force highly politicized with a distinct MAGA bent.
Right. And they also point out a bitter irony. Federal cost-cutting measures recently stripped funding from state humanities councils.
which are the exact organizations trying to plan localized, civic, and historical programming for small towns.
It creates a stark dichotomy. On one hand, the national focus is entirely on grandiose, commercialized, televised national events.
And on the other hand, the traditional historical and civic programs that actually engage local communities are just starving for basic funding.
Let me push back on that, though. It's the semi-quincentennial. We only turn 250 once.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the federal government be planning massive, unifying spectacles? A Grand Prix on the National Mall sounds like an incredible way to draw international attention in tourism. Why should Washington be responsible for funding a pancake breakfast in Rutland?
This raises an important question. Washington shouldn't necessarily fund the pancake breakfast, but the issue is the vacuum of resources and the resulting burden on local infrastructure.
Okay, how so?
Well, federal spectacles look incredible on a television broadcast, but they do absolutely nothing to help a municipality pay the time and a half overtime required for local police to secure a community parade.
Ah, I see.
The tension lies between national legacy building and local survival. The federal government is focused on the brand of the 250th, while local town managers are just trying to figure out how to pay their firefighters rising health insurance premiums so they don't have to cancel the 4th of July altogether.
So what does this all mean? With towns inevitably canceling more events due to these budget crunches, and the federal government focused strictly on grand spectacles in major hub cities, you might be sitting at home thinking, fine, I'll just drive across the border, buy my own fireworks, and put on a show for my neighborhood.
Right, the DIY approach.
Exactly. But here is the legal and physical reality of why you absolutely cannot take matters into your own hands to save the show.
If you are in Massachusetts, the state has incredibly strict, unforgiving laws regarding pyrotechnics.
Very unforgiving.
Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 148, Section 39, it is strictly prohibited to possess, use, or sell fireworks without professional state-issued certification.
And yes, that law applies even if you drove up to New Hampshire and purchased them completely legally.
The penalties are not a slap on the wrist or a simple noise complaint either.
No, we are talking about the mandatory seizure of all your fireworks, immediate fines of up to $1,000, and the potential for up to a year in prison.
A year in prison just for fireworks?
Yeah. State officials are treating this so seriously heading into 2026 that they have already strictly prohibited fireworks, smoke devices, and even sparklers at all upcoming World Cup celebrations and viewing parties.
Police are required by law to confiscate them on site.
Wait, sparklers too?
Yes, there is a very specific, data-driven reason for that strictness. People often view sparklers as harmless children's toys, but they are highly dangerous combustibles.
I mean, they're literally burning metal.
It's exactly. According to the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, sparklers accounted for 12% of all fireworks-related injuries in 2023. That single item resulted in approximately 600 children being severely injured and burned.
Handing a kid a sparkler is basically handing them a glowing metal stick that burns at nearly 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It stays hot enough to melt skin and burn down a house long after the actual sparkles stop.
It's terrifying when you put it like that.
Back in 2022, the unsafe disposal of a supposedly burned-out sparkler caused a massive 3-alarm fire in Dracut, Massachusetts that entirely displaced 9 people from their homes.
But, because of these incredibly strict laws and enforcement, Massachusetts actually boasts a fireworks injury rate that is about 1/5 the national average.
That's a huge difference.
It is. The exceedingly low injury rate in Massachusetts is a direct, measurable result of prohibiting DIY solutions. True public safety requires professional infrastructure.
Right.
When citizens try to bypass that infrastructure because their municipality is making budget cuts and canceling events, it leads directly to tragedies. It leads to the Gabriel House fire, where safety checks were bypassed due to understaffing, or the Dracut sparkler fire, where untrained individuals mishandled combustibles in their backyard.
So I am speaking directly to you, listening right now. If your town sends out that email canceling its 4th of July show this year, are you really willing to risk a $1,000 fine, a year in jail, and potentially setting your neighborhood on fire just to see some sparks in your backyard?
Probably not worth it.
It is a massive risk, both physically and legally, to try and fill the gap left by your local government.
Which reinforces the overarching theme of these sources. You simply cannot separate civic celebration from public safety.
They are completely linked.
And you cannot have public safety without properly funding the professionals who provide it. When the budget breaks, the tradition breaks with it.
Looking at these incredibly dry municipal budget documents out of Chelmsford, or reading the desperate staffing reports from Worcester reveals a really unsettling truth about how fragile our civic traditions actually are.
It really pulls back the curtain.
The 4th of July isn't just about patriotism or wearing red, white, and blue or watching a parade go by. It is a massive economics and public safety tightrope that your local community is walking every single day.
Exactly.
The mundane decisions made in town halls about pension liabilities, health insurance premiums, and tax overrides directly determine whether your kids get to see a fireworks show or ride on a float.
Which leaves us with a critical and frankly somewhat dystopian thought to
Oh
consider.
boy,
As these municipal funding models continue to buckle under the impossible weight of pension and healthcare costs, what happens in 50 years?
that's a good question.
When the 300th anniversary of the United States rolls around in 2076, will traditional town governments even have the financial capacity to exist and throw these parties?
Or will they just go bankrupt trying?
Right. Or will our civic holidays be entirely funded, policed, and managed by private corporations, completely changing the nature of who owns the public square?
That is a wild thought to leave on. But before you go, we enthusiastically encourage you to like this deep dive, subscribe to the channel, follow us on your favorite platform, and hit that notification bell so you're always up to date when we drop a new analysis.
The next time you get an email saying your town's fireworks are canceled, you won't just blame the weather.
Nope, you'll know exactly why that jagged white line of a broken municipal budget is the real culprit.